This is made for VOD, video on demand for Twitch. So we'll just start right into it, even though people have not. But actually, give me like a minute while I, if they want that in GIS public. Oh, it's so funny. It does. Type in here and you don't hit space, it picks somebody. So you actually,
Oh,
they're quite funny. Wow, that's 800 people it just pinged because that's how many are here. We're averaging around 7 to 1,000 on the weekends, which is pretty extraordinary, actually, because it's just a show. Now it's a few.
now I'm saying if you would have typed chili stream, you would have got more people. just saying.
You'd have to hand out though. So I'm gonna actually, what we could do is go through news, right? Oh, tweeted. Yeah, what we could do is, what can we do today? And well, we can always hit the Brisc thing, right? Because people are always debating that. Still funny. It's still back and forth and back and forth. So let me write that down as a possible. But
That's still ongoing.
yeah, it's still a thing. It's surprising and not surprising because I think it hits on more than just the CSM got kicked. It's not just because it's Brisc. A lot of layers to it. Initiative is basically hampered. They're hurt by this because it took 2 FCs with them, and 2 FCs that were really active. And that, as far as the in-game stuff, that's a real problem for the people who are allied with them. Snuff is a lot less sure to take on a fight if initiative isn't there to back them up. So there's that. Another thing we could do is check the headlines around papers going on there. We could also develop our own news live. I was going to do what do you call it?
When you say making our own news, mainly I thought let's start a scandal right now on air.
Make something up. No, our own news is to go and research what's going on out there. But I want to see this because I saw it on the playback and it really bothered me. I use this if it glitches out, like if you see a flash on that. So that glitch you just saw, there it is. You see that?
Yeah, the blue one.
Right after that.
Yeah, I saw the glitch.
Yeah, that's not going to work. I'll have to figure out something else in order to demonstrate the game. I think if you don't do anything, I think it's when Windows get stacked on Windows, the OBS doesn't know how to handle that. Kind of a problem. Well, let me know if it glitches more.
All right.
All right, well, let's get started. I guess what we can do is check out the headlines.
We got Victor. He just joined.
Ooh.
Victor fell. He just joined.
Oh, what's up, Victor?
Not much. Getting ready to go do my public service today, but thought I'd stop by the stream.
Did you get in trouble with the law?
No, I have jury duty this afternoon.
Oh.
Getting in trouble with the law was last year. This year, I'm helping the law.
You. All right, so you're welcome to hang around. We're going to talk about a few things. You and I disagreed on something recently. What was it?
I don't remember. I think we were going on things that I won't name and you won't name because it's been, I think, 2 days since we've last mentioned something that happened.
Super vague. Okay. Well, I forgot. I thought we were in a
It's
discussion.
been 2 days since we mentioned Brisker Ball.
Well, Brisc is the name of this whole thing, but okay, let's start there. We're going to start there with a little more on this Brisc banning situation. I was just saying that it is Brisc Rubal's name on it, right? But it's not just about Brisc. It's about Pando, about Darkshine, it's about initiative. One of the things that we talked about after the show, I think I chased some people away too because they were might have been misunderstanding what I was trying to say. So they left chat. But one of the things that you look at this situation as something that was brought on by its complications. Brisc is an interesting character. He comes into the game leveraging real life because he needs to in order to get elected, and he gets elected. And he's actually good at what he does because he likes playing the politician in virtual world and in real life. And that creates a complication. Now, because he's from Initiative, a lot of people were like, a lot of his friends were like, yeah, run. They were egging him on to run. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's complicated and bad, it's bad for everybody. So it kind of feels like he was, um, I don't know how to put this where it doesn't sound bad, but the situation, not him, but the situation is kind of viral, right? Because it infected, it allowed the privilege to, let's say that the CCP was correct and they did inadvertently use knowledge to make money. It allowed this disease to spread throughout the body of Initiative. And instead of just taking out the virus or whatever, you had to take out part of the body. So Initiative is crippled when it was really enjoying this benefit of having a CSM rep. I find that fascinating. Um, and I think I know what we disagreed on. You thought that it was on purpose. That
I thought that it could have been. I like as I said, not this Monday, last Monday. I wasn't there by Friday. I could see where, yeah, there's some people vindictive enough to pull this, and I mean, it's all conjecture right now, but I have a background doing national security investigations. That was part of what I did for DoD back in the day. And when we look at stuff like this, I look at it from a CI counterintelligence perspective. So I'm looking at, okay, you have four basic things that people will flip over or do really bad stuff over. And that's usually money, ideology, coercion, or ego. And I've just been having problems squaring that circle. I'm not saying that it's 100% with CCP. I think eventually everything will blow over with this. They'll do their appeals process. It'll either be the ban will be upheld or things will change and we'll all move on from it, to be honest.
so of those four motivations or what tributes to what is it, espionage or what would you call it?
Espionage and criminality in general, but it applies more to an intelligence type thing. Um, I didn't see any motive there with Brisc or his cohorts. They had everything to lose and nothing to gain by this. None of them really seem to care much about money, real life or otherwise. There's not really any ideology involved at all that they could spin to their benefit by doing this. There's no way they could be coerced into doing it, really. And especially for Briss being a kind of public figure guy, banking so much on his PR cred and his political cred, um, it's the exact opposite. If he was trying to stroke his ego, he'd be doing the exact opposite of trying to get kicked off the CSM or thinking he wouldn't get caught. He'd do his due diligence and do everything he could not to have this happen.
No,
Well,
but I was gonna ask,
Speculation.
what does an accidental disclosure will fall into this three type of motivation from leaking? Because that sounds like motivation is meant from someone who's malignant. I don't even know how to say it, but someone who has the intent, malice. What is malice? So, um, what happened when it's not malice?
Well, that gets into like with criminal cases, usually no, I'm not lawyering up, guys. I was an investigator, not a prosecutor. But what little I know about it, in order for whether it's a district attorney or an AG's office or a special prosecutor's office, or in our case, the FISA courts, to go through with something, you had to, especially with national security crimes, you would have to really hammer down on yes, there was a malicious intent. Because 9 out of 10 prosecutors go, if there's no malicious intent, it's not really a crime.
Right. So, but the NDA violation doesn't necessarily it's a criminal
Yeah, it's a
case.
civil deal. So
Right.
that's where my disconnect happens a lot of times
Right.
in
So
all those.
so from motivations, because we're talking about thinking about it a motivation type of deal, right? We're talking about criminal motivation. So if it's not criminal, meaning there's not intent to do it to be with malice, what would be a motivation from someone who's not doing that has no malice?
I see absolutely no motivation for them to do this. I mean, essentially, if they got together and actually did this intentionally, I'm saying if they did it intentionally,
Right.
it, it would be as frankly idiotic as, lol, let's headshot our own alliance today. That'd be a great idea. It'd be funny because that's essentially what happened. But
Well,
I want to go to Matterall's point really quick
sure.
because, he said something really important and he said it before. We focus so much on Brisc, we're forgetting about the other two guys involved and what those other two guys meant to their alliance and the kind of meta picture of Eve and the good fights picture of Eve.
Well, that's what I thought we were talking about. I think that's the story that's like the buried headline here. If you look at it from a game's perspective, from the actual gameplay perspective, where people are fighting wars against each other and you motivate and mobilize large groups of people, um, Brisc is not that big a loss for his team. He's like a morale boost, sure, and he's a popular guy. People like him, etc. But on the field, he'll tell you he's not that big a deal. He brought out a Titan, it got killed. Bad luck, but the point is, he's not even a Titan pilot right now. So inside the game, it doesn't hurt very much. Same as me, if I were to die on NC side, I would be nothing. Like it doesn't move the board one way or the other. But if I were to take down Killer Bee and Lady Scarlet with me, there's some damage being done to NC, right? Like you have um, you have some infrastructure there.
Precisely. I remember years ago when I was back in the old HBC on your side and everything, when when Tess was with us, and then I was in the City's Empire back then. When Tess was with us and flipped on us, that hurt us. When in it, back in the heyday of Sister Bliss doing 24/7 fleets, flipped on us mid fight, that murdered us down in the south back in those years. Like that was 2012 or so.
Well, I thought what you were saying was that you suspected the North of engineering this somehow, or at least pressing for it through CSM, get Brisc in trouble, and it led to a domino effect that maybe was unexpected but beneficial.
I
North.
honestly wouldn't be surprised on that. It could be either or. I wouldn't be surprised on it. I wouldn't be surprised on CSM shenanigans. I mean, there was a whole war of solveless aggression and casino war. There's people that are still bitter. Me, I'm not a bitter person. And on that note, just a shout out to Bot, Lady Scarlet, and everybody. You guys have been putting up great fights in the North. Been loving it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, yes, thank you, everybody, because they've been absolutely tremendously fun fights.
Yeah, I think NC's a collection of all the people that are not wanting to join goons right now. It's grown so much.
And that's healthy for the game. I mean, the thing is, we can't do this without each other in the end. I mean, sure, we'll talk smack to each other in loco, whatever, and all that, but we really can't. You can't have a fleet if there's nobody else to fight.
All right, so that's the I guess the kudos to NC. But you were saying that you didn't look you were saying it's possible that they actually engineered, and I was saying it seems like very unlikely.
Unlikely,
Yeah.
but we've had a lot of unlikely moments in Eve.
If it was the other way around, I could see someone like Aerith taking credit for it. Yeah, it was part of a plan.
Oh, my whole thing is that they deliberately, on their statement, called out the CSM, saying, "Hey, the CSM brought this to our attention."
Yeah,
Now
but
that
why?
could be just
Yeah,
somebody brought that to a CSM member's attention, and the CSM came up with it, or it could be vindictive CSM members,
well,
which narrows it down. And we have out of all the CSM people as of Saturday, I don't really keep up on this like you guys do, but we have two CSM members, I believe, that, according to sources, were trying to go out vehemently denying, "Oh, it wasn't me, it wasn't me."
yeah. Isn't that a funny difference? Like if this was a meta play, that people wouldn't want to take credit for it. Such a brutal hit.
There were only two. Everybody else has been quiet, but there were two that were like, "No, it wasn't me, it wasn't me." I
Uh,
have to watch because one of them I have some implicit bias for. So
which two denied it and therefore caused suspicion? Your point of view.
I believe Sort was one, and I can't remember the other one. I know the Matani, peace be upon him, mentioned two of them in his own show, and one of them I believe was Sort.
Sort and Killa, isn't that who you said?
Yeah, Sort Killa.
Came out and
That was
denied
his
it
name.
was them, and therefore it made suspicion.
Yeah, why are the other ones just being very quiet about it? But those two are like, "No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me."
Oh, hey Arya, how are you? You can sit and lurk if you want. Conversation.
Good morning.
Morning. Um, I don't know. I think that the reason CCP put that up, the way I see it is the people who turned in Brisc probably also liked him and said, "Look, I like Brisc. It's not personal, but you should know CCP that this happened. Therefore, you might want to just keep an eye on what his alliance does financially." Or but they turn him in and they say, "We don't. We like the guy. It's nothing personal, but we want to protect the integrity of this institution because we've worked really hard to keep it, right?" And I think CCP is like, "We get it. We know that you want to keep the relationship good, and we also want to keep the relationship good as CCP. Therefore, when we make a statement, if something happens, it will be a very clear statement that this not only was brought to us by CSM to show that they want to keep this close relationship, but we'll also do an extra step of saying that CSM does great work and we have a lot of confidence in them and all that kind of stuff." And if you read that, we'll call it a public statement by CCP when they kicked Brisc, it was full of, "We got this guy. He's in trouble. It has no reflection on this group that's doing great work." And they went on and on about how great the group was. But that made the contrast with Brisc even harder because they're talking about how great the group is and then how Brisc is not in that group anymore. It made it even a harder contrast, which I found kind of funny. Um, yeah. Oh, McLeod.
There's also something that we may not know, um, that I just actually thought of, and I don't know why I didn't think of it before. There's all this stuff that happens in a CSM that we never see, just, trivial stuff. They may have given fair warning, they being CCP this year, that says, hey, we're going to take a different approach on this year. We've been kind of lax on NDAs and stuff like that with soft bans and, just removed from the CSM. CCP may have came in at the first of CSM 13 and said, look, if you do this stuff, it's not going to be like the past where it's kid gloves and we make a little statement, you know, you get smacked on the wrist. We're going to go full ban hammer on you.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey, I don't know. The thing about it is that Pando is important to initiative. McLeod, you're an initiative. Oh. And I think it's got to hurt them to
Yeah.
a pretty strong degree. But I disagree that this is a meta move that nobody's taking credit for. Because one, if it's a meta move, people take credit for it. Even
I'm not
if
saying
it's
it is
wrong.
or isn't. It's just possible.
Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned that we've been focusing on Brisc and not the other two individuals. And I was looking back on the dev blog, and it sounds like the second individual's fault is passing NDA information from the first person to the third person.
Sure does.
So, and I wonder about that. Does that really, the extent of it, does that warrant the ban? And I think of it other examples. If a CSM were to tell someone like you, Matterall, 3 pieces of information, and you publish that as a podcast, what if one of those pieces happened to be NDA information? Are you in a similar situation where you transmitted NDA information from one person to another body of people?
Question.
Also, did
Would you feel
these other
like
two
a
sign
ban
the NDA?
warranted?
Let's let Arya point. What was your last part?
Right. So would you feel that if you were to get a ban, would that be warranted? That even though, that you're just passing information and that turns out to be NDA information?
It's funny. I love to think that like reporters have a pass, right? Because they're just reporting. But this isn't real life, and this isn't the legal system. So there's no protections. First of all. Second of all, we are liable as players. If I publish how to RMT, right? But you would say like I'm just analyzing a situation and putting light on it, and you have to describe what it is, and then you can describe what you feel about it or how it affects the game or how it's analyzed. I'm still in trouble and bannable for that sort of thing. And also if I just basically violate the EULA, I'm bannable, and I could violate the EULA even though I'm a reporter by being abusive to someone. So all that to say, yeah, we're up for grabs completely. If somebody passed me the information and I published it, I think that's a little bit gray, but again, it's really up to CCP. If they were to ban me for it, I would say, enough. Basically done. It's like,
Well, there's similar things like that in real life for reporters anyway. Like, I mean, you say like if you break the EULA, you get banned, and that's like not analogous to real life, but it kind of is because you can do things as a reporter in that kind of frame of reference without doing something that violates the laws of the country that you live in, like, but you can also violate the laws of the country that you live in. But in another kind of way, like, freedom of press has its kind of limits, because if you're out there in the real world telling people how to manufacture bombs, I have a feeling that your country's kind of security services are going to probably pay you a visit.
But do we have a fair expectation that if somebody with privileged information, CSM or CCP employee, tells us something about the game, that it's okay to share?
I think if you don't know that it's, you know, information that would be considered a breach of NDA, then I think there's
plausible
a case to be
deniability.
made. A case of plausible deniability, but if you've manufactured that plausible deniability, or that you're faking that kind of plausible deniability, then like I kind of feel like trying to cover that sort of thing up would be you should get like harsher punishment for that.
I don't think there are any.
Anybody can fake it.
There are no protections for players. You have no rights past the EULA.
Yeah.
And that's just it. I mean, we can play lawyers and stuff like that, but we have no rights beyond. We can have a sense of fairness, and I think that's what a lot of people are reacting to, because there's a lot of character witnesses for Brisc and those guys that would say, yeah, and they come from all over the place. These guys aren't.
But I would add though that some of the worst criminals in the in human history have been people that other people like neighbors and this, that, and the other have said, oh no, we didn't think that he was a bad person at all. He was always very jovial and everything like that.
It's quiet. So, he's just quiet.
He was just a quiet dude. Like he didn't seem to be kept himself to himself. But he
didn't know he killed 30 people and buried them in
exactly
his backyard.
Right. So,
well, I'm saying that people are reacting through a sense of fairness, like, oh, we know these guys, we know they didn't do this, so CCP has to be wrong. And there may be coincidental, circumstantial evidence that CCP is acting on, and if they did, boy, they really got it wrong this time. So reverse it, or at least hear from these guys so that they can explain, so that you can correct your error, CCP, so you can fix this. That is a point of view of a lot of people who are sympathetic to Brisc Pando and Dark Shines. But I think there's also, and we don't really cover it that well, a counter to that. People are, well, there was all the people making fun of Brisc because of all the trappings of a politician getting caught with his hand in the cookie jar. All the no collusion, the relationship with real life Donald Trump.
Publish the report.
Yeah, give us the full reports. There's all kinds of links that way that were very meme centric and fun. But even beyond that, I think there's a group of people who are like, he had it coming. Somebody was on all the shows.
Oh yeah, all the detractors of Brisc. All the people who didn't like Brisc for his in-game political leanings, or the political sphere that he was in. Like, yeah, they're gonna jump on it and run with it.
Wormholers were trying to be like, let's get this story out there. Let's make sure everybody covers it, which I thought was kind of sad because they're real life implications. But I could see their point of view of saying, like, we don't like this guy. Yeah, we failed to get our own person on CSM, but this guy's no stand-in. And if he was a stand-in like he wanted to be, he really screwed up in allowing this and that to happen, even though the records show that he was trying to say, like, you guys, you're going to mess up Wormholers here. But he was... okay, so maybe ineffective. But Wormholers, it's up to them to really coalesce around one candidate to ensure that one person gets in there next time, instead of having your HK candidate and your Wormhole Scary People candidate and 2 others. It's up to you guys.
And then your 15 nullsec candidates.
Yeah, well, you need to come together, Wormholers. You need to bring your armies from King's Landing up north, and not not be so divided and end up being killed by the White Walkers coming down and just destroying you in the polls.
All right, no spoilers whatsoever.
I'm not saying none of this was spoilers. Don't worry.
That doesn't just go for Wormholers, so that goes for anybody that's not in one of these big blocks.
Yeah.
It's high sec people. low sec people. I mean, low sec has gotten no love for going on a decade now.
Low sec gets love all the time. These structures are low sec. These some of the changes to
Well, I mean, one of the
war
big kind of
decks
aspects of
is
low
low
sec.
sec.
Yeah, one of the big aspects of low sec though that hasn't been touched and really requires a lot of love is faction warfare.
Yes.
Low sec being dead in this game, which Zeitverven, I'm not going to say name.
He's
I'll call
bad
him
at
Z. Z in orange there.
Be Matt,
Low
be like an FC and go ZE.
Zeddy, yeah.
An MO,
ZEI.
and PE, and 3P.
Primary ZEI.
You know.
Yeah, the low sec being dead, and that's not CCP's fault. Like, that's your fault. Like, that's if you're
Just because I was in mood, don't blame me.
well, yeah, it started way back then, didn't it? Like, I don't get this. Like, when people say our gameplay is suffering, our gameplay sucks right now, and I'm thinking, well, you kind of abused that gameplay. You really kind of made it. You kind of overfished it. You anybody who was a pedestrian in low sec is constantly, you always attack. You never let somebody pass. And if that's the case, people learn like, well, I'm not going to go to low sec. I know it's a little bit more lucrative, but I'm just going to do the safe money and stay in high sec. And then you guys complain about high sec. It's like,
I have to say this though, that's not actually how it happened. You
Oh.
say we overfished it, we being traditional early Eve low sec pirates, we really didn't
how'd you do it?
overfish it.
How'd you do
We
it?
used to do ransoms
Right.
Well, I mean,
and
I was
stuff like
gonna,
that.
I was gonna pipe up about that actually, to be honest, because like, yeah, like, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, before I like really got into like, nullsec, I had been caught by pirates and they did ransom, and I did pay the ransom, and they were honorable and they let me go. But nowadays, like, you get caught and someone ransoms you, like hell do you think you're gonna get away after paying the ransom? I doubt that.
I think a lot of people look at low sec and say, "Hey, there's no good changes for low sec." Well, I invite you to, and now in chat, type up some of the things that you would change in low sec to make it all of a sudden a place that high secers want to go to get killed at. Like what could you possibly do to convince them to come to low sec to get killed, or to fight each other? If two people, it's not just a hunter and a prey. There's also hunter versus hunter, and so what would you do there? What are some of the things you would do for
I
low
mean,
sec?
traditionally when I got caught in low sec by pirates, it was because I was trying to run a level 4 mission that was just in 0.4 space, and I was like, "Oh, can I do this? Oh, can I not? Oh, let's go for it. Let's see if I can go for it."
So Markai
And
says,
then getting caught.
no. Oh no, it's 3PO. 3POK says no NPC stations in low sec. I don't see how that's going to invite people into it. You can make it a one-on-one arena, but if there's no stations, there's less safety. Less people are going to be willing to go there. What attracted me when I was in high sec and I was a minor, and it was 2007 or 2008, I thought, well, I'm getting this yield on this rock here in high sec, but over here the rocks look twice as big. That's something I want to go and get. And if I'm careful, I can get it. And so I went over there and then promptly got killed. That's how you lure people in.
I mean, this may be kind of very subjective. Like, I don't want to have it sort of seem like I'm trying to play like amateur dev, but like high sec, you tend to have Concord basically covering your ass. Low sec, you do have gate guns and station guns, but like other than that, there's not really that much kind of protection there, except for some of the protections that you don't get in nullsec, like being able to not being able to put bubbles up and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like in low sec, because it's still sort of sovereign territory for certain groups. Like I feel like the Navy should still be around, and the standings that you have with navies should affect your capacity for being either saved, or the people who kill you get their comeuppance in some way, shape, or form based on your standings with the self-holding group in that low sec. But that's just me.
I love what Yuliak writes in public. Low sec is dead because it's where you go to pioneer and play the evasion game. And that's a great way to put it, to pioneer. If you want to save low sec, you need to create more ways to pioneer in low sec, in my opinion, because that's what draws the curiosity of players and helps transition them to put themselves in danger. I think that's exactly what for. It's to explore a little more conflict in your gameplay, but to explore it. If you have certainty of death, like nullsec when it had bubbles and nothing was nullified, it was not a place you went to pioneer. Like you were either invited into nullsec or you didn't go to nullsec. You didn't go touring around or exploring unless you thought you were gonna, wanted to die. Yeah, you could take a stealth bomber, and if you worked your afterburner or a micro warp drive correctly and cloaked up fast enough to get through a bubble, even if it was being monitored by people. But generally, you got killed, especially if you didn't know what you were doing. So pioneering was something that was very important to low sec, where you didn't need all that stuff and you didn't worry about bubbles. That was a big deal. You didn't worry about bubbles. I think one of the suggestions that somebody said was put bubbles in low sec. That just makes it just exactly the opposite of the kind of point of view I'm coming.
Yeah, all bubbles and low sec would do is be we used to do the old Thrasher fleets, suicide gank fleets on the gates, and all it would be is a more expensive Thrasher suicide gank fleet with bubbles with the gate gun concepts. And I'm in agreement with you there, Matterall.
I mean, I kind of feel the bubbles in low would basically. I mean, you hear a lot of people. You hear a lot of cases where, like, a very impressively or a very good kind of PvPer is using a lot of implants and this, that, and the other to make particular fits work or work extremely well. If you and those fits and those kind of people tend to play, as a small group, as a solo or a small group against larger groups. If you put bubbles in low sec, you basically neutralize that gameplay.
Yeah, it would kill it. It would just kill low sec even more. Putting bubbles up. Nope.
Yeah, I don't think low sec needs to be its own individual kind of system. A lot, when you're in null sec, you cross through low sec. It's just it's a fact of life. We cross through low sec to go from region to region sometimes. I like to see incentive to bring people to low sec. In high sec, we have missions, but what if the mission said, if you deliver this package here, you get ISK. But if you go one more jump into low sec, you get 20, 50% more ISK.
I'd ramp that up to even 100% more risk.
And it gives the player the option to go, if I have someone scout this gate, I can make more money. And it gives them the option. Things like that to incentivize folks to just come to low sec, not necessarily to live in it.
It'd be really cool if, and I know this is a bit, it would be a hell of a thing to write into all of the various different missions, but if you had missions that, like, were offered into low sec 0.4 system, if it actually said in the mission briefing, like, that people get, if it actually said when that occurs, maybe recruit someone to help scout you, into and out of, dangerous space.
Well, that was a lot of the gameplay early on. Was you'd have everybody mining like crazy, and a lot of the action would be escort fleets, escort your stuff. Get not Jita at the time. It was, and I wasn't playing this game at the time. That would have been about 2005 or 6 and stuff. So that kind of gameplay definitely happened. It was a much slower game. There's no way you could do that now. I don't think you could say we need escort fleets. People just wouldn't do. The game's too fast now. People want action like that. And I don't think the mindset of the slow moving grind that you're building something works anymore in a really fast cycle time of get me some fun right now. I think it's one of the problems that EVE Online has. It's a long game. People come to play it for short bursts of excitement. And those two things aren't always compatible. Some people find ways to do it. Exactly. Ways to stick around while they wait for content. These bigger wars and campaigns to happen. But back to LowSec. Yeah, so I think a lot of the stuff when they say LowSec needs some love is you're not looking. There's a lot of love given to LowSec because all the structure changes that are being made, or most of them at least, are things that can be used in LowSec and in wormhole space. And so both those places are getting some love. It's not like they haven't changed. They've changed dramatically. And Faction War, I think, as well. Now, Faction War may be actually, I would say Faction War has been hindered by structures. And I think that's a problem, and that needs to be looked at. But I think if you're saying Faction War is LowSec, I think that I have an older, well, maybe not, because Faction War started when I've never seen LowSec in Faction War. Have you guys?
No.
Faction War should be both low sec and high sec.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be weird if it was nullsec too in some sections, like NP? Like, in other words, the empires are competing for space from the outlaws players. Well, like there was some.
I mean, that's incentive. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, kind of saying faction war, like LowSec is faction warfare, like as if it's like, there's nothing else about LowSec that isn't faction warfare. It's kind of like saying that nullsec is only, empire building, and that's not the case. LowSec is and should be multifaceted in the same way that, like, nullsec is.
And high sec was just made safer with the war deck changes. But I still like to see that incentivize players to say, you can sit in high sec and do your missions. It's safe. Or you can maybe join faction warfare. All your missions get a bonus payout. But as a downside, you're now in faction warfare. If the opposing faction flies over to you in high sec, they can engage you. And that gives the players the opportunity of saying, I want to make 50% more ISK with that additional risk. It gives, some players will go for it, some won't, but it gives that option.
You mentioned that the changes have come. Not all of them yet. In May, there's still more. In fact, the big chunk of them. But already, I think you're seeing pirate groups have to merge. Something that was. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I would like to know how these war deck changes are starting to change the landscape in sec.
Well, I mean,
you don't have to answer.
People have
but if
people have the capacity of leveraging corporation tools, like in-game corporation tools, like, and I say that in a sort of way that like there's these additional tools that people don't know about in corporations, but corp chat, right? If you've put yourself into a corporation, corp chat is one of those tools, and people in nullsec kind of take corp chat as basically as for granted, essentially. But if you were in high sec before all these changes, like, you didn't really have corp chat. Like, corp chat was basically the NPC corp that you're in. If you were ended up being in a corp with the corp chat, it was nice, but you eventually ended up getting war decked and then griefed pretty much out of the game. So having that ability to coordinate with something that is automatically there for you coordinate with, and just basically socialize in your group, the group of friends that you have is going to be a bonus for developing friendships, developing gameplay that wants to go somewhere, wants to move somewhere, wants to be its own thing, and at some point.
Okay,
it just requires time.
I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me without any clipping. I turned off noise gate, so this should be getting my full voice, even if it drifts off, which is happening. The way noise gate works, if you don't know, is that when it gets to a certain point, if it's below a certain amplitude or loudness, it cuts it off. So you can make light noises all around you without it all feeding your microphone by cutting off all the loud noises. And then when you talk, you're supposed to overcome that threshold, and then you have your voice, etc., etc. And so that's why I would get clipped if I wasn't talking loud enough or strong enough into the mic. And hopefully that has been fixed now.
You sounded fine.
Yeah. Well, good. You guys are hearing me a bit differently than they are because it's two different inputs. Well, anyway, all I wanted to do is point out that war decks are still changing, and it will be interesting to see that. So we'll see. I mean, the big changes are happening next month with the war deck headquarters, the cost simplification, where it only costs $100 million to fight a war against someone, and improved mutual wars and war UI improvements. One of those UI improvements I kind of like. Every time you are under a war deck, basically, you'll be able to see it at the top left of your UI, which is good. It's like a warning sign that you're under threat. But
that's good and bad.
Why is that bad?
Well, if you're like my small mom and pop organization and you've got 15 war decks a week, if they're all, I don't know how it works, but it sounds like they're giving you a warning the whole time on who's at war with you. Is that correct?
Not who's at war, but that you are at war.
I honestly think that's idiot proofing. I'm just going to be blunt about it.
What's wrong with idiot proofing, though? I don't think
it's just another piece of clutter on the UI that, if you're like me, it's already really cluttered.
I think the problem in Eve is that you want things to be dangerous, but you don't want things to be stupid. So, if you're like undocking, and I mean, even if you're trying to be immersive in your gameplay, hey, I'm going to freighter these goods out to a certain place, and I undock and get blown up. It's like, oh yeah, I'm under war deck because 25 hours ago somebody declared war on me and I wasn't around for a day. That's not good gameplay.
You get a mail for it.
Yeah, if you check your mail, but let's say you log in and you're
So because somebody is too, frankly, lazy to check their status of, hey, what's going on in the world around me a little bit before they undock their bling ship, everybody else has to have a big bunch of crap on their UI in the upper corner.
That's not lazy.
It's a question.
You say that whether the argument works both ways, though.
Hi, Bard Ghost.
He can. Sorry, hey guys. He can equally ignore that symbol in his top left, top right, wherever it is, as much as he ignores the mail. Or if he checks the mails, it's just simplifying the process.
But then again, you can also see it as a case of like he didn't know. Like he may not have been, accustomed to, checking that kind of thing. He may not realize that's of where to actually find that.
I guess I'm just showing my old bitter vetness there, because the answer 10 years ago would have been, play the game, please.
Well, the answer of the game would have been in the right-click menu, right?
Well, it's all a struggle, right? Like if you already possess knowledge that gives you an advantage, you don't want anything to change. If you are somebody who's trying to compete, then you're trying to eliminate this arcane knowledge that you don't possess yet. And you can do it one of two ways. You can learn it by joining groups and learning from them and getting better. or you can complain that the rules aren't fair, and it's an obstacle for you competing. So, and I think they're both viable. At a certain point, though, CCP looks at the game and says, "Well, we got these, 1,000 guys that are sitting on the benefit of being a veteran, right? Because they learned from one another how to overcome or use the rules or the mechanics to surprise people who aren't seeing the obvious, or actually not even the obvious, but the not obvious. And so we'll always keep them satisfied because they have an advantage over all these people coming in and losing their ships to them. So they're happy, but that is not what's going to constitute a healthy game in the long run. In the long run, you got to balance the needs of the newer people to play the game and to play the obvious game, not the hidden game. At the same time, not too quickly take away the advantages that people have for investing into the game, investing their time and energy and knowledge into the game. So they've got to balance those two out. And I think for a long time they favored veterans, and there's been a shift to favor new players. And there's a lot more new players than there are veterans.
Well, you say that, Matterall. You saw Hilmar's interview, sorry, Victor. Just quick though. You saw Hilmar's interview, right, where he said they turn over nearly 10,000 players a week, and very few of them actually stay.
Oh,
that was some pretty scary numbers.
Millions of people, literally 1.5 to 2 million. I think it was the number 1.5 million people have played Eve. They gave that number out at one point. That was years ago, maybe at the 10th anniversary. And somebody can correct me on that, but it was clearly over 1 million people. I think it was over 1.5 million people have tried Eve Online. Some of them played for a while and left, and some of them play for a while, leave, and then come back. So you never know. But we clearly don't have anything near 1 million people playing this game. And if we did, it might feel more like a vibrant ecosystem than it does now. And it feels that way now. It's a big game. It's a huge game, but it could be much bigger. I mean, look at Pearl Abyss, over $1 billion in Black Desert Online and all the stuff that goes with it. That dwarfs CCP.
It's nice hearing those numbers, right? Sort of $1 billion kind of thing. But Pearl Abyss has been known to be, very heavy on microtransactions and all of that kind of jazz. So, and to be fair, the Asian markets are a lot more open to the idea of a game that's full of microtransactions comparatively to Western countries. So there is that too. So
yeah, there is no doubt. I don't think anybody disagrees, including Dirk McGurk there in chat, that more players in EVE Online is better. The more, the better.
Oh yeah.
All MMOs survive on populations. And that's why players are obsessed with population numbers. It's funny, you can't experience all the people playing this game at one time. So what's it matter how many people are playing this game at one time? You're only experienced, 1 to 2,000 at the most. A server in other games, we're all one server, so we get all the people in one game, but other games have servers. There are only 1 to 3,000 people per server, I think. At least they used to be way back then. So what's it matter if 500,000 people are playing your game or 30,000 people are playing your game if you're only ever going to be in contact with that many? It's a psychological thing.
The thing with Eve, though, is because it's that single shard, it's more people in space, more people to shoot, so on and so forth, right? It makes it easier for everyone to get content.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also that, if you've ever played a sharded kind of MMO or hybrid of some form that is sharded, you throughout playing it, you make new friends and you network with people maybe outside of the game client. But it really sucks when you realize that you're a group of friends that you didn't realize were playing the game, and you find out are playing the game, and you go, oh, okay, cool, I'll come join up with you guys. Where are you at? Like, and then you realize that they're not even on the same server as you, and you have to start a brand new character, and all of the stuff that you've been grinding and all of the kind of achievements that you've made in that server mean nothing just because you want to kind of go and play with your friends who are in a different server on a different shard. It really does suck.
Well, we got to wrap up soon. Arya, do you have any other thoughts on this? I can see you're typing. I assume he's actually typing. So and TIS Discord.
It's fine.
So I put him there. All right. Yeah, I got to wrap up. Well, I'll give you like 2 more minutes if there's anything else you guys wanted to talk about.
Did we cover the unfortunate linking of the of a particular Eve article on I think, what was it, on
Twitter
by CCP?
Yeah.
On Twitter or on Facebook or something?
Yeah.
Ooh, what happened there?
Did we cover that or not?
We didn't cover that yet, but we can. I'll show. Let's see.
It was funny.
Well, what happened was this article came out. I actually, in order to get information on EVE Online, I have a Google search saved, and it gives me all the articles published on EVE Online that are out there. And then I browsed through those, and I found one that was published that said 7 reasons to play EVE Online, and I read it and made a remark on it. That was Sunday because that's when it came out. But CCP also saw the article, and they tweeted it saying, like they tweeted saying, hey, here's an article. And they probably would, reading the headline, but somebody didn't read the entire article. McLeod, you want to tell them what happened?
Well, I think it was an article that was done a while ago because it's talking about Ascension, right? Well, at least it has the artwork for the Ascension. But right at the end of the article, the guy links, a website where essentially there's RMT sort of possibilities for people. Obviously now, the site that's linked in the actual article has no RMT kind of avenues for EVE Online, but still, the article right at the bottom is basically promoting RMT. Which is just ridiculous, especially when you think that CCP kind of tweeted it out.
Yeah, we had seen it on Sunday, or I wrote something on it on Sunday, and it says you can earn a lot of money playing this game. You can sell the game or items for currencies on an online market like Eldorado.gg. The trouble is Eldorado.gg doesn't sell anything from EVE Online, so this guy didn't do his research either.
Well, that's what I think, Matterall. I think the thing is, back at the time, it did, but I think maybe
back
CCP
at the time this article was written the other week.
Yeah. Was it in the other week?
Yeah, it was published on the 19th. But one of the points of that was, the thing about it is that was a very generic. I think that was a very generic article. It could have been written in 2010. It didn't talk about any of the actual features of the game. It just talked about some of the gameplay modes, which haven't changed in a decade. So I think it might have been something written a long time ago and then just republished. It seemed very generic. It's just kind of filler content. And it might have, and if that's true, it might have been written at a time when RMT wasn't as much of a scarlet letter as it is now. I think for a long time, I remember RMT being something that people just didn't talk about. But CC, it wasn't at the top of everybody's list. Spotting was always at the top of the list. And RMT, I think people getting hammered for it was true. But now you have there's a paranoia about it by the entire player base that seems to be out there, at least in the metasphere.
I just find it strange that the article linked has artwork from EVE Ascension. That was the thing that kind of twigged me about about the
it being old.
If this thing was dated, if this being old, and certain websites being kind of not available for RMT. If you kind of get me.
Yeah, and that was the first clue. It's got old artwork on it, but it's also got a lot of the concepts in that article are very generic. So I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was a new article. I thought it was regurgitated stuff. But yeah,
maybe.
All right. Well, I gotta go. I'm not gonna do the 2 hour show today. Maybe Thursday, but we'll call it quits here. And I did want to show what was in the headlines, but we didn't get a chance to see that. I did see that. Where is it?
I like the fact that you're doing like an e-version of the papers.
The papers, yeah. We want to go through each article and talk about them. Here's the justice at stake.
Things burned down in the north.
Oh, you can't see this. Look. Let me turn this on. Whoop. Yeah, this is Sister Bliss, the leader of the initiative, and he is pissed off that his two FCs got nailed, and Brisc too.
As you would be,
Yeah, he's mad. But he wants to give CCP a chance to fix it, I think, and then he'll come out with the real story on what happened and how he knows the real story. I don't know. I think it's also conjecture and placing it together. But I think he has the advantage of being able to see API ins and outs of money, and maybe that has some kind of additional clues. But I doubt it. There's still contracts and logs and people as witnesses that CCP can rely on. It's not just EPI or what is it?
ESI?
Thank you. ESI information. I don't think it was environmental protection. I don't know what I was thinking. But the ESI, ESI data is only part of a puzzle. It can be a lot of different things. I don't know. The whole Brisc thing has everybody scratching their head saying like it was mishandled or we don't know what we're talking about. I don't know.
Definitely a PR disaster.
I don't see it as a PR disaster yet. I think it's still a PR victory for them because they have EVE Online in the news, and that's not a bad thing.
See, it's you can see it's two ways. Either it's a PR disaster because they may have wrongfully banned a bunch of people, right? Or it's a PR win because it's seen as upholding the ideologies and the people potentially doing game breaking or abusive stuff to account. So those are the two kind of subjective views as to whether it's a win for CCP or a lose for CCP.
I think it's hard for some new players when you hear these stories and oh look, this guy got banned and look at all this art and these news articles about his real life name. Does someone want to come to this game and subject themselves to? So I think it's kind of a mixed bag with the PR. People are hearing about CCP and EVE Online, but that question
Not
of do I really want to get involved with these players?
Yeah, it's definitely not for good reasons. And I'd say it doesn't even fall under the all press is good press. This is just generally bad.
No, I don't think so at all. I think you completely underestimate the point of view of, I think even more than usual, an American style politician getting caught for corruption and kicked from a game is an attractive thing, even more than usual.
You're too heavily in the free Brisc camp, Bard. That should be saying something because that's coming from an Init member.
It's okay. The thing
wow.
You've got to step forward.
Just got ganked.
If he has done it, I have no problem with the ban. I have a problem with the way it was handled with that article because the article was just not good. And I also, in some aspects, think maybe he didn't. But if he genuinely did, so be it.
Yeah.
See, my read on this is like, it crossed a threshold, and the threshold was, going into social media. And I kind of have to wonder, like, it would take a bit of, forensics. Well, not forensics, but it would take a good deal of, like, really, really solid investigative work to see, where was like what I call patient zero, regarding the stuff breaking on social media, like whether it was Brisc himself or whether it was someone else. Like, I have to wonder, because when you look at CCP and the way that they worded it, yeah, they worded it the way that they did, and they gave us information, but not enough information, just enough information for everybody to speculate. But they didn't actually use Brisc's real life name. I mean, yes, we know that Brisc name, in game and real life name are pretty well known, but they didn't actually go that one step, that one step too far.
They didn't
Depends
make
on
the
who
link.
they is. If you include
Yeah,
all
there
the
is that.
media in the pronoun they, then
No,
you're
no,
wrong.
I'm talking
They is the
just
media also
CCP.
has used it.
I'm talking
Yes.
just CCP.
You know
I
what?
prefer EVE Online players to be known for the positive things we do, like donations that care for kids and things of that nature. I think that's a better look for this community.
I think if you're looking at the game as a prospective player or someone who's just curious about Eve, the idea of a corrupt politician getting his comeuppance is an attractive one on any level. I don't think there's an issue of trust or, wow, it's really affecting this guy's real life. I think that, again, emphasizes that EVE Online is not a game per se, but it is more than a game. It's almost like a cult, like it's at some level, people are rabid about it. Like even we are having a show, just talking about it and what's going on in it is beyond, I think what, when people are looking for a game, I don't know. I think if they see programs like this or if they see news like that, they look at it and they say, well, it's a bit more than just a game. It seems like it's got a following. And I think we've developed that reputation as
The thing I will say though is not everybody cares for the, oh look, a politician got comeuppance in their game. Many more of us are like, just fucking keep politics out of our games, please.
No, this is a civilization game. It's not a spaceship simulator. I think if it was just a spaceship simulator, it would have been Valkyrie, or it would have been.
Okay, so
something
does
else.
this mean
It's a social simulator, and in that context, politics does play a part, unfortunately.
Yes,
but
Eve
but
politics,
bringing it out,
fine.
But yeah,
Real
but
life
bringing it
politics,
out,
keep it the fuck out.
yeah, that's what I mean. But like
Okay,
bringing
what-
it out to like real life politics, as in like Republic Democrats and all.
Well,
that
but
kind of
real
shit,
life
yeah.
technology, keep that out too, or real life. I don't know. Religion or
real life faces.
Real life faces, keep that out too. Like
we managed to do it in Karma Fleet?
He says
Keep
while
out real life
being on
faces.
stream with his face.
Not real life faces, but like politics. Internally, Karma Fleet has a policy, and as soon as anybody says the R or P word, somebody will come in there like Negan with a baseball bat and shut that down.
I would say, Matterall, if you do want to swap to an animated face, there are programs that allow you to do that.
Maybe cat ears on Matterall.
It would be
I think they've been telling me to
variations on that theme.
get my face off. I think you're right. I figure that people want to relate to a face, like that's part of it. And I also think that Eve has the uncanny ability to put people who disagree on real life politics in the same corporation, and that may actually be an avenue for people cooling off on some of the politics. Right now, politics is so divisive because it's been made divisive. We're told to get mad about politics, and we do because we do what we're told.
I don't get mad, but I worked on Senate and presidential campaigns, so.
Yeah, well, I'm saying as a populace that there are things that we're basically divided by that generate lizard brain reactions that make us say things even if we don't feel them completely. And it's a good way to raise money is when you tap the lower brain, it's a good way to raise money. And I think that's what a lot of politics is. And on both
people screeching.
Yeah, and so but the problem is that leaves damage, and so we have this divided culture, and then you have EVE Online, which has people from both sides of a divided culture. In fact, not just the United States, but other countries. with other points of view, with other news sources. And at that point, I think Eve gets really interesting because you can have people fighting on the same side in the game, and in real life, their values are completely different, or at least their rhetoric about those values is completely different.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I remember watching a show. I think it was a TIS or maybe it was an open comm show. A little thing that happened between Dirk and Brisc, where Dirk said something, and Brisc said in response, basically, you can piss right off with that. I represent unions for a living.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I can't go into it. It might be doxing. He's been public about it, but I don't want to take any chances. But politics in real life are also really weird. If you actually work in politics, it's a really weird thing.
So having worked on,
but yeah, but Vic, like, oh yeah, okay, go for it.
So having worked on 2 Senate campaigns, I most recently Catherine Cortez Masto, having worked on the Sanders campaign and stuff like that, what I found is people get into a bubble. They don't know the other side. See, I was a Republican long before I was where I was at now, which is on the left.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know the other side, and they get to a point where they don't want to. No matter what, it's all about the issues. They don't talk to the other side as people at all.
Yeah.
They only talk to them as issues. And I think that's part of why we polarize so badly.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that's why, people are like, keep politics out of my game. I can understand why it's uncomfortable because it's a divisive thing if you're on the wrong side of it. It's also a bonding thing if you're on the same side of it. Like, and I've gotten to the same point that you've talked about where you just don't even want to hear the other side because you feel the other side is completely not listening to your point of view, or they're ignorant of, what you already know. And the other side feels the same way. I feel that same way. And we have a political channel here at Talking In Station, so I stay out of it mostly because these guys are a lot smarter than I am in there. But I didn't want to hear from the right. But there's, there are people from the right in there dominating the place, and a lot of them are smart. Go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like, but the thing is, I feel like you can bring in, say, your political experience as a thing to help you, with knowing how systems work, how, policies and how, like, organizing groups and that kind of thing function, without bringing in without bringing your ideological and like your commentary, political, political ideologies and political commentary into it, like.
Brisc says he's been very surprised how this whole mess has been viewed through a partisan lens, which is really interesting too. I find that interesting. I didn't even see a political angle to it in real life until I saw the Meta show, and then I was realizing
it was out there.
Was it out there before that?
Yeah. There were multiple articles where the authors were like, "Haha, Republican gets owned in space game."
I mean, even
I think you're paraphrasing, but
I am very paraphrasing.
He is, but that was the general tone of. I believe I saw 7 different articles like it. The general consensus on Reddit was, "Ha, a Republican got fucked," and it's like,
yeah, it was that bad.
What the hell? It doesn't matter what side he's on.
But Reddit to me doesn't.
What's happened is the problem, not what side he's on.
It's outrage media, right? So,
yeah.
Oh, I don't.
I said this in text, and I'll say it here on voice. I thought that was some of the kind of scummiest thing I'd ever saw. And Brisc and I aren't on the same political party at all anymore, not since 2006. And it was just really scummy.
I think there's a lot of language in real life available to crapping on a Republican right now because Trump generates a lot of backlash and a lot of things and a lot of memes that can go with it. So I think there's a lot of language there, but basically it comes down to let's crap on this guy we don't like. just use whatever tool you have. And I think Dirk McGurk made that point. It's just another way of sticking it to somebody, which this game does in spades. I don't necessarily like it, but that's what this game is set up to do. It allows people to salt tier. I mean, to mine tiers. That's what they want.
I'd rather mine tiers over stuff that's in Eve, like actually just exclusive to Eve. There's plenty on both sides to mine on that.
I get that, but that's not where it ends. You don't have a border for Eve. Eve completely bleeds into real life. I feel it does. And that's why we were talking earlier about how Eve Online in 20 years will actually, the simulation gameplay client will disappear to tools that are used in order to play this game that's essentially in our heads, with the market and with organizing people and all that kind of stuff. Like the meta takes over from the actual gameplay. So I don't see that easy line of like, hey, let's keep it in the game. I think Eve is the worst game to try to keep it in the game. And people really, when they go to war, they want to upset each other, and that's a big part of the conflict. And there's a lot of veterans like yourself that say, "Hey, people like each other too much. We got to get back to hate." That's what generates gameplay in this.
I've actually been just the opposite.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's compare and contrast. Didn't I actually sing you guys' praises for MC and for all the good fights lately? Yes, I did. Because they have been good. I've personally sent Lady Scarlet messages thanking Lady Scarlet for, hey, thanks for showing up for these fights. This is great stuff, win or lose.
Doesn't that feel like you're working against your cause? I mean, why do you do that?
No, because it takes both sides. In order to create that PvP content, it takes both sides.
But do you think you're encouraging her to show up when you say, like, hey, thanks for showing up? Do you think?
Oh, God, I hope so, because I want to totally dunk that nerd and her puppy fleet. There, is that better? Is that what you expected, the stereotype?
I'm not pushing you to say that, but I'm exploring the idea of, like, how much do you want real conflict and how much do you want pretend conflict?
Well, the thing is, there is real conflict because there's timers going off and fights to be had and things to gank, things to defend up there in the north. And that's, at least for me, that's good enough.
I mean, the thing is, the next step above when you talk about real conflict is the hate wars of old that just pushed people out of the game.
Yes, and I don't want to go back to that.
We can. If we go back to that, we are risking the health of the game at this point. We're not in the early years where it's possible anymore.
I actually think there's a lot less hate war victim being pushed out is a lot less frequent than I've accomplished all the things I set out to do. I'm done with the game. And so I think whatever you can do to give somebody the next thing, like 1001 Nights, right? Always one more story to get somebody to stay in the game is probably more beneficial than worrying about the guy that got stomped on too hard that quit the game.
I guess I just don't want to go to back to the day of endless streams of test spamming porn and local and Lady Scarlet fat jokes.
Well, that's different. I think at that point you're right. There's no room for that. I think there is room for some kind of ethics, but those are real life ethics. They're not Eve's ethics. In real life, you shouldn't try to diminish. You shouldn't humiliate somebody. Like, I don't think you should do that in Eve. I don't think you should do that in real life.
Agreed.
So I don't see that as an artificial border that Eve puts in there. Like, hey, if you see her in real life, you can say that. It's totally fine to say that in real life, but don't say it inside of Eve. That doesn't make any sense. It just makes sense that you never say that in real life because it's a terrible thing to do and to humiliate somebody. And you don't humiliate somebody inside the game either. Play hard, play fair. I don't think you should thank people for fighting you. Personally, I think you just shouldn't humiliate them.
Well, when you guys bother to undock, that is. I don't just thank you guys for fighting me. I mean, when you actually bother to undock.
But you shouldn't humiliate them either.
Exactly.
All right. We'll wrap it up right when it got good. I got to run. But it's been nice talking with you guys.
Stay docked, Matterall. Stay docked.
I don't know what you're talking about. See, are you trying to?
All right. Dock.
Yeah. All right. I want to thank you guys and let you know that if you want more information on the I believe we're going to have a show soon, if not this Thursday, on pirates and what their current state is now that the war declarations have changed. We might have that on Thursday. I'll double check.
I'll definitely have to hit up that one.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have a show on it, and that's been in the works for a while now. We wanted to give it some time before we brought them on to let's see how things actually kind of settled out before we brought them on. And I also want to say it's very important for you guys, if you don't mind, to follow us on YouTube, because we only have 600 followers and we should have a lot more than that, I think. So if you could get us over 1,000, that would be great. And of course, there's always Patreon, there's always subscriptions, and there's always follows and stuff like that. All that kind of stuff you can do to help support our efforts. And lastly, if you could also give us a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you can review us, that would actually help us as well. A lot of work being done every day, and we just got to make sure it gets out there. And the way we do that is to have people favor us with stars and writing reviews and stuff like that. So thank you guys. Okay, last comments before we go.
Just on YouTube, click the bell and make sure that it's you're getting notifications. So if you miss a show or you miss a stream or something like that, when Matterall pushes it to YouTube, you'll get a notification, so you'll be able to know that something's happening. You can go watch it.
Yeah, if all you guys in Discord subscribe to Twitch, we won't need to follow to Twitch. Sorry. Then we won't
It's the
need
same
to pay.
thing. It's essentially the same thing.
Okay.
It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe on YouTube. It's
right. YouTube, it doesn't cost anything. Right. Anyway, so follow us and give us some reviews. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. We will see you later this week on Thursday. Bye.